Say what you will about Max Verstappen, but goodness me, the man can drive. From the depths of the past 9 races to the absolute euphoria that hasn't been seen since the opening rounds, Max has finally seen his longest winless streak for quite some time come to an end on the same day that he overtakes Michael Schumacher as the man at the top of the championship for the longest amount of time, something that has been all but guaranteed at least until the beginning of next season following a complete capitulation by McLaren, and something made more so impressive by the fact that there are more rounds and so more opportunities to take the throne from him. Max continues to be the most confusing, polarizing and unignorable personality on the grid and deserves the exact same level of adulation and plaudits as the condemnation and backlash that he received for his Mexico City head loss. The only thing less consistent than Max's car this season and resulting state of mind is McLaren, with the papaya team looking to be absolute world beaters on some weekends, but then completely falling apart when it matters the most. With the rift between Verstappen and Norris now bordering on the insurmountable, just where did it all go wrong for McLaren, and are they capable of challenging again next year, or have they let their one chance slip? Want to know how McLaren dropped the ball this weekend? It was pretty preventable if we're being honest, and stick around because the way that this season has panned out might allude to something that McLaren should be incredibly worried about. Man, what a crazy race. I'd argue it was probably the craziest since Turkey back in 2020, where similarly treacherous conditions and an equally ill-prepared racing surface were combined to make an absolute worldie of a race for us fans, and likely an absolute nightmare for the teams and drivers alike. While clearly Verstappen did a fantastic job and deserves all of the plaudits for the race, other drivers must also share in the glory, with Alpine pulling off a textbook wet weather shock, both RB drivers finishing above the second Red Bull, as well as Lance Stroll for providing some much-needed comedic relief to such an intense Super Sunday of F1 action. There was drama, there was controversy, but more than anything else, there was McLaren being left in a position where they have to once again walk away licking their wounds after failing to capitalize on a promising qualifying, which saw Norris's main championship rival at the back of the grid under controversial circumstances, and Piastri being in the mix to be the rear gunner in the first real chance for Norris to make a substantial gain on Verstappen's championship lead. But that really didn't happen, did it? Piastri probably can't wait for the beginning of next season, where he will be granted a clean slate of points. Being requested to let your teammate through once must hurt enough, but having to do it twice because the teammate hasn't been capable of keeping it on the track must ergo hurt twice as much. While yes, Oscar had an impending penalty and so letting Norris through initially made sense, Norris didn't exactly disappear down the road and left Piastri in the jaws of the RBs behind him, ultimately finishing behind Tsunoda. Piastri, the talented yet ice-cold driver that he is, will likely be seeing Norris's weak underbelly and rubbing his hands together at the prospect of fighting on an even playing field once again. While clearly Piastri is far less experienced and hasn't quite got the same consistency as his now veteran teammate, for want of a better word, the improvements seen since Bahrain in 2023 has been exponential, and for Lando Norris a rather worrying prospect. As much as Norris may feel hard done by in regards to his strategy and luck that he received in Brazil, in particular the pre-safety car change of tyres, his incapability to maintain a good start in the second phase meant that he could not do the 2 things that may have guaranteed him his place at the front of the field come the checkered flag. One is being able to stretch out a gap at the front of the field himself to give him and the team some breathing room, and the other is not having to be as reactive or concerned in regards to the strategy calls of the other drivers around him, and both of those would have completely nullified any complaints that Norris may have about the team's calls throughout the race. I mean, just look at Max when he got into the clean air at the front following the second restart. A 5-second gap appeared almost immediately, and he never looked back, ultimately leading by 20 seconds come the end of the race. However, despite it being the case that the race was there for the taking if it was executed well, Norris insisted that it was all just bad luck and misfortune, as he said, "All about position loss. We were just under the red flag with 3 pit stops for the other drivers, so unfortunate, nothing more." George probably felt like he won the race today, and he probably deserved to win the race today more than anyone else, but sometimes it's just unlucky and the rules go against you. So a difficult day. I made a couple of mistakes that cost me against George and cost me against Charles. Nothing more. It was a tough day. I did my best. I've had a lot of good races. It was about time that something didn't go right. And while, yeah, the red flag can bite anyone at the wrong time, as experienced by Max in qualifying, the fact of the matter is that points have been left out on the table by McLaren yet again. I've said it over and over again that the thing that will win Max Verstappen the title will be other drivers taking points off of each other, and to a certain extent, I've been proven wrong. It's not been other drivers taking points off of each other, it's been McLaren and in particular Lando Norris not gaining points from advantageous positions that will ultimately cost them the capability of challenging, that will deny them a showdown come the final round. Max will maximize every iota of potential out of the car, no matter how poor it is, 9 times out of 10, and by not ensuring that you're making the most of any advantages you have over him, such as having the fastest car and beneficial qualifying positions, you are leaving room for him to retain his crown, even though he hasn't necessarily had the fastest car for most of the season. Naomi Schiff said as much following the race, with the Sky pundits summarizing McLaren and, in particular, Lando Norris's uphill battle over the course of the season, with Schiff saying, "It just feels like they've left some points on the table. It hasn't been the first time this season that they've done that. Whether that's coming from the driver in the seat or the pit wall, it feels like collectively they haven't been able to dot their I's and cross their T's completely as a whole this season. Lando is a great driver, but he's up against the best in the world. Max rarely makes a mistake, and the team as well." And all of this means that next year is all important for McLaren now, as it's the final time that they are guaranteed to be competitive due to the regulation changes in 2026. The issue that faces them is the fact that there will possibly be 4 teams competing at the start, not considering the possibility that other teams may close the gap in the final year of the regulation cycle. And as we alluded to before, the status quo is already showing signs of being tested, adding a further challenge to the current Constructors' Championship leaders as they explore balancing 2 top-quality drivers while challenging at the sharp end of the field for the first time in over a decade. This McLaren team is still currently in quite a young guise, and aren't exactly the cutthroat Ron Dennis McLaren with all their experience that gained them championship wins. While the current McLaren are certainly maturing at an exponential rate, their profligate reputation is something they will have to drop at the earliest opportunity, as points left on the table is what has both ruined their Drivers' Championship hopes as well as gifted them the potential of winning the Constructors' Championship, as just imagine how terrible the circumstances would be if Red Bull had a capable pair of hands in the second seat. The scary thing for McLaren is, according to Norris, Verstappen's race pace was beyond anything that he or the team could have responded to, which is certainly something that doesn't bode well for next season. Max was easily quicker than us, and I think if he went from the front, he probably would have lapped us. The pace was good, I think similar to George, but the Red Bull was very fast today. It's been an up and down weekend for sure, not a lot more I could do. And to be honest, the deflecting from Norris has been getting quite frustrating recently. This weekend, much like this season, may prove to be a real case of what if for McLaren. The Constructors isn't guaranteed, and now they either need to fix their consistency issues quickly or rely on other teams dropping points. Though for as long as Sergio Perez remains in that Red Bull, they can sleep soundly in the knowledge that the main threat they have is the equally inconsistent Ferrari, who are a team going through their own teething issues. Fortunately for McLaren, having a podium sitter with another driver somewhere in the points for each of the final races should be enough to get them across the line in regards to the Constructors' Championship. However, given the fact that every weekend sees a complete shuffling of the pack at the moment, there really is nothing guaranteed. Thank you for watching.